Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot to talk about today. Double Masters 2022 cards are aggressively finding their price points right now. Some are moving down, but many are already moving up as product sells out and that fear of missing out begins to kick in. We'll be looking at a number of cards from the new set in today's video, but there's a lot of other things happening too. Again, we will have a $2 threshold, so we're not going to discuss any card unless it's moving at least $2 up or down. Quickly though, before we get into the details, just a fast reminder. If you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, at time of recording, they are sold out of the Double Masters 2022 Draft and Collector booster boxes, but they have a lot of other things on their website. And I will keep my eye out for a restock, and if I do have additional information, I'll put it in the description and comment section below. So be sure to check that out. Remember, if your order's over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We begin, as we always do, with the Standard Legal Spotlight. This is where we talk about the standard legal cards that are moving the most this week, and I only have one to talk about today. That is Old Gnawbone from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It goes down 234 this week to 43.47. This is retracting after some recent increases, but it is worth noting that it was added to the list with Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, and there's a copy of this in the Beetle and Grimm's Here Be Dragon Secret Lair. Speaking of Commander Legends, though, that set recently brought a lot of Dragon Tribal support to Commander players, which is why this has been so hot. You will see it in Commander the Dragon and Tiamat builds, which along with some other Dragon Commanders are seeing more play now. Plus, this is in a Commander build around a new card from Commander Legends, that is Miram Sentinel Worm. And that quickly takes us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. We got some cards going down, some moving up. First is Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth from Planar Chaos, down 203 to 39.97. This was in the list from Modern Horizons 2 through Innistrad Crimson Vow. And this is another card retracting after some recent increases. It has been seeing more Pioneer play in the new meta that began when Winona joined her forces and Expressive Iteration were banned. This is in the Rakdos midrange deck there, which has been popular and performing very well. It's also in Rakdos Sacrifice and more in the format. In Modern, you see this in Yawgmoth, Rakdos midrange, and more there. Legacy, it's in Sultai Depths and Colorless Cloudpost. Plus, this is a huge Commander card in many different builds. Some new ones too, including Merkle, Lord of Bones, and Tasha the Witch Queen. Plus, this is a good upgrade to the Mind Flayer's Commander deck, and I also see this in fresh builds around the front-facing Commander from there, Captain Nagathrod. Next is Aurelia the War Leader. Now, this is the copy that you find in the Guilds of Ravnica Boros Guild Kit. This one only comes in foil. It's down 245 this week to 24.98. Now, the reason this is losing this kind of value right now is because it was reprinted in Double Masters 2022. It is a fairly popular commander, but it is in the 99 of many builds as well, including Kalia of the Vast, which is another card reprinted in Double Masters 2022. Next is the Invasion copy of Absorb. It goes down 254 this week to 1243. You might remember this card was climbing recently. Now it is starting to retract. It did get hot again because of that Pioneer meta shift. You see this in Azorius Control builds there, which have been doing very well. Also shows up in Esper Control there. Plus, this does get some Commander play in a variety of builds, including a new one, the Council of Four. Dragon Lord Jermoka, our first Double Masters 2022 card of the day, is down $256 to $11.50. This was in the list from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms through Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Now we have a new copy of the card circulating, and of course, as packs are getting cracked and the demand is getting met, the value here is dropping. It is a dragon that you can find in Commander builds around the Dragon and Tiamat. This is also in Commander decks around a new card at times too, Glunch the Bestower. Twilight Prophet from Rivals of Ixalan goes down $2.82 this week to $15. This was added to the list for Crimson Vow, still there now in Commander Legends. Remember, the list was shorter for Streets of New Capenna, and even though the Magic version of the Stranger Things cards were heavily weighted, the other cards in the list also appeared much more frequently compared to other sets. As a result, there's a lot of extra copies of this card circulating right now, and that is why it has been going down in value quite a bit. It is in a number of Commander decks, including Alper Markov, but it is seeing some additional play now too. It is a good upgrade to the Party Time Commander deck, and I have seen it in fresh builds around Baracos Party Leader, along with a background folk hero. Additionally, I've seen this in builds around a commander and background from the Commander Legends main set, Sarvok Deathbringer and Raised by Giants. Last card moving down in this section is another Double Masters 2022 card. It is Liliana, The Last Hope. It goes down 375 to 1373. And again, you have a situation here, packs are getting cracked, the card's getting into circulation, the demand isn't as high as some other cards in the set, so it is losing some value. This was also in the list for Strixhaven, which wasn't too long ago. In Modern, this is in Mardu midrange, and it does get some commander play too. Sometimes you'll see this in like Liliana Heretical Healer builds, for example. First card moving up today is Llanowar Waste. This is the copy from Apocalypse, the original. It goes up 279 this week to 1984. Now you might remember, this jumped a good amount last week, a little more this week, but when you look at the other copies of the card, they're just not moving. So this is a situation where copies of this in high grade are just dry online right now, and the asking prices have moved up. Once people see this higher price point and they decide it's time to sell, more inventory will get into circulation, and I'm sure things will go back down. However, still worth noting that this is a popular Commander mana-based card. It's in many different builds, including a new one, Myrkul, Lord of Bones. Overgrown Tomb, the original one from Ravnica City of Guilds, is up 280 this week to 2279. Sure, all Shocklands are getting another reprint in Unfinity, but original copies have still been moving up at times. With the regional championships this season being Pioneer tournaments, a lot of players have been scrambling to build decks. Then, of course, we had the bannings not too long ago, so some people had to build different decks. And basically, if you need to buy a Shockland for a deck, it might not be the worst idea to buy one of the originals, because when the reprint happens, they tend to lose the least amount of value. When it comes to gameplay, this is in many Pioneer mono-green ramp builds, since they can run Golos Tireless Pilgrim out of the sideboard. Also, you see this in Niv to Light and more there. In Modern, it's in Yawgmoth, another really popular deck. It's also in Jund and others there. Plus, it's another solid Commander mana-based card in lots of builds, including the Ur-Dragon, and in new decks like Myrkul, Lord of Bones, for example. Sarkhan Unbroken is here again. This card has been hot. It goes up 394 this week to 2664. Again, moving up because of the new Dragon support from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. It is in Commander builds like the Ur-Dragon and Tiamat again, and also in a build around a new card too, Miram Sentinel Worm. Alright, our first Double Masters 2022 card moving up, it is Smothering Tithe. It goes up 407 this week to 29.99. Okay, one thing to understand about these Double Masters 2022 cards, the set's only been out for a little over a week, so our baseline for this price is day 1, day 2 of the set release. At that time, sellers were kind of guessing what these cards were worth. Some of them now are going down as the demand wasn't as high as maybe some expected. Others are moving up because the demand was higher than expected. And like I said at the beginning of the video, some of the bigger cards like this one, especially some mythics, although this happens to be a rare, people begin to see product drying up, that fear of missing out kicks in, and they start paying a little more for the card. Also too, I gotta say, I was a little surprised at the pre-release price of some of the Double Masters 2022 singles. Some seemed too high, others seemed very, very low. And the ones that were low quickly are adjusting. And this is one of those examples. This is a huge commander card in many different builds, including the Ur-Dragon. It's also seeing increased commander play in new decks like Myrkul, Lord of Bones. Ultimately, though, if you are playing white in Commander, you probably want a copy of this. It also got a Command Zone podcast mention this week, which could have brought some attention to it too. And the last card in this section is another Double Masters 2022 card. It is Crucible of Worlds. This one, though, is a mythic. It goes up 464 this week to 27.95. Now, maybe this doesn't see as much play as it once did, but still gets a lot of play. In Legacy, it's an 8-cast, sometimes lands. Vintage, you see this in Prison and aggro shops. Plus, it is a popular commander card in various builds, including some new ones like Baba Lysaga Night Witch. And this also got a Command Zone podcast mention this week as well. That takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight again. There's some cards going down, then some cards moving up. First one going down is Snapcaster Mage from Innistrad. It's down 274 to 31.94. It was in the list from Midnight Hunt through Neon Dynasty, and then it returned in Commander Legends. This original Innistrad copy, though, has been soft recently. Now, granted, it does see a little less play than it used to see, but it still gets a good amount of play. In Modern, you see this in Jeskai Control, Esper Control, and more. Legacy, it's in Jeskai Control there. Vintage, Paradoxical Outcome. And it does get some commander play, too, in a variety of decks. City of Brass, the Modern Masters copy, is down $3.08 to $24, and of course this was reprinted in Double Masters 2022, which is why this is going down now. In Modern, it's in Dredge as well as Ad Nauseam. In Legacy, it's in Lion's Eye Diamond Dredge. Big Commander Mana Base card too, found in many decks, including the Ur-Dragon again, and in some new builds like Merkle, Lord of Bones. Windswept Heath, this is the original Ocelot copy. It goes down 332 this week to 56.96. Now, this is down after some recent increases, but this is the lowest I've seen this card in a very, very long time. Considering it's an original fetch land, I would assume it will begin to creep up again soon. Sees a lot of play, obviously. In Modern, you see this in 4-color Omnith, Hammer Time, and much more. Legacy, it's in Elves, Naya Depths, and more there. Another big Commander Mana Base card, too, found in that currently popular the Ur-Dragon build, and much more. Also in those new Merkle Lord of Bones decks, too, another popular deck right now. Child of Alara, the copy from Double Masters 2022, losing a good amount of value percentage-wise here. It's down 353 to 262. Now, maybe this had a little bit of a high price point during the pre-release time, considering it's a rare especially. Packs are getting cracked, copies of this are getting out there. It is a pretty popular commander, though. Parallel Lives, Roman Innistrad is down 435 this week to 59.81. Now, some players were hoping that this would get reprinted in Double Masters 2022. When we found out that that wasn't happening, this card did jump a little bit. Now it is retracting back down. It did get a printing, however, as a 2022 Judge Foil, but of course, that's not going to bring a lot of copies into the marketplace. When it comes to gameplay, it's a huge commander card, and it is seeing more play now in new builds like Miram Sentinel Worm and Merkle Lord of Bones. And the last card going down in value today that we're going to discuss is Thrumming Stone. This is the Double Masters 2022 copy, down 674 to 995. Now, there are other Double Masters 2022 cards going down in value. There's also older cards that were reprinted in that set moving down in value, but we don't really have time to cover them all, so I wanted to give you a sampling of what's going on out there. My advice would be, though, if you want to pick up one of these cards, stay really close to the market, because there are still a lot of others we haven't discussed today moving down in value. When it comes to this one, we have a rare here, not a mythic, so again, more copies are getting into circulation compared to some other cards. This does get commander play, along with cards that can break the deck limitation rules. As a matter of fact, this is getting more play now in the format around a new card, Bane Lord of Darkness. Sometimes those builds run Thrumming Stone and multiple copies of Shadowborn Apostle, which is another card that was reprinted in Double Masters 2022. Now for the cards moving up in this section, Force of Negation from Double Masters 2022 is up 487 to 4660. Now this is a rare, not a mythic, but it is another example of a card from this set that had a very low pre-release price. The amount of gameplay this sees is pretty staggering at this point. In Modern, it's all over the place. Crashing Footfalls, 4-color Living End, and much more. Legacy, it's in Izzet Delver, Jeskai Control, and more there. Vintage, it's in Esper Tinker, Doomsday, and more in that format. Plus, it gets a lot of commander play too. You see this getting some additional play in new decks as well, like Tasha the Witch Queen. Emeria the Sky Rune. Now, this is the copy from the list that was only there for Zendikar Rising, and it is dry online this week, which is why you're seeing this jump of 608 to 2317. In reality, you can find this card much cheaper. It's just getting theoretically pushed right now due to the fact that there's not a lot of copies out there in high grade currently for sale, and the ones that are do have some high asking prices. This is a very solid commander card in many builds, including a popular one, Giada Font of Hope. Phyrexian Obliterator, the original new Phyrexia copy, up 654 this week to 41.99, still pretty hot. This was in the list from Zendikar Rising through Modern Horizons 2. It has always seen some commander play in a variety of decks, including Umbra Sphere Manifest, and Umbra's decks are getting more play now due to the support for the strategy that came from the Mind Flayer's commander deck, as well as the Commander Legends main set to a lesser degree. Obliterator is also a good upgrade to Mind Flayers, and it is being used in fresh builds around Captain Nagathrod too. Additionally, you see this in another new commander build around a card from the main Commander Legends set, that is John Irenicus Shattered One. Ren and 6, the Double Masters 2022 copy goes up $391 this week to $75, where the Modern Horizons copy goes up $702 to $8608. This was in the list for Zendikar Rising and Kaldheim, but that copy is relatively stable this week. Now, I'm not super surprised to see the Modern Horizons copy jumping this quickly this much, simply because this was one of the first cards we found out would be in the Double Masters 2022 set way back when they announced it. They showed us the art for this, and ever since then, sure, the card could go up in value from time to time, but I'm sure it would have gone up more if we didn't expect the reprint. Still, though, you can see the new copies climbing as well, and the card does get a lot of play. It is in Modern 4-color Omnith, Elementals, and much more there. Vintage, it's in Temur Tempo, Standstill, and Temur Control. Plus, it gets some commander play too in a variety of builds. Cavern of Souls, the Modern Masters 2017 copy up $2 to $75.56. The Double Masters 2022 copy up $7.19 to $65.51. This was in the list from Kjell through Crimson Vow, which was quite a few sets. Again, though, we have an example of a card that had a pretty low pre-release price, considering the price of the older cards that were already circulating. And of course, you know this sees a ton of play too. In Modern, it's in Amulet Titan, Elementals, and much more. Legacy, it's in Doomsday, Mono Green Cloud Post, and more there. Vintage, you see this in Mono White Aggro. Huge Commander card too, found in many decks, including, you guessed it, the Ur Dragon. And again, you also see this in the new Miram Sentinel Worm decks. Plus, it is a good upgrade to Mindful ARs and does show up in new builds around Captain Nagathrod as well. And that brings us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, or cards that are just popular among collectors. Pretty short Vintage section this week. Now, as always in this section, at least for some cards, when you look at the price on the screen, it might be a little more reminiscent of what you might see on a price tracking website. And that's because some of these cards are really hard to find nowadays in high grade, and you don't see that many sales occur over the course of a week. So we do have to lean a little bit harder on asking price, at least in some examples. Also, too, when it comes to the older, more iconic vintage cards, the price you see might fall somewhere in between a high-grade raw and high-grade graded copy value. But as always, I will point out if that value isn't somewhere towards the middle, or in general, if the price you're seeing on the screen isn't matching up with recent sales. First, though, we have Mana Crypt, the one from the original Double Masters, up $5.18 to $187.78. This is rebounding after a recent dip. In Vintage, you see this in Esper Tinker, Paradoxical Outcome, and more. Another huge Commander card all over the place. Yup, you guessed it, it's in the Ur Dragon, and it's in some new builds too, like Miram Sentinel Worm. Remember too, this is a nice upgrade to the Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Secret Lair Commander deck, and it appears those are finally being shipped out soon. Mana Vault, the 4th edition copy up to $15 to $58. The revised copy up to $28 to $64.75. And of course, the Double Masters 2022 copy already climbing up $6.88 to $59.99. You see this in Vintage, Paradoxical Outcome, Prison Shops, and more, and it is another popular Commander card in many builds, including Urza Lord High Artificer. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga back again up $24.06 to $976.60. Notice this card has lost a fair amount of value recently, starting to rebound though, as you can see. This is in Legacy Elves as well as Maverick and Vintage. Sometimes you see it in Squee Hollowvine. It is expensive, but if you got one, this is great in a number of Commander builds, including a new one, Raga Draga Gorgut's Boss. This also got a Command Zone podcast mention this week, and it was in a Maverick Legacy deck featured in a Tolarian Community College video as well. We have a few unlimited cards jumping up quite a bit again this week. This is Lord of Atlantis. It goes up $13.46 to $95.95. Lord of the Pit from Unlimited up $14.06 to $104.85. Argivian Archaeologist goes up $46.02 to $324. Argivian Find is moving up this week too, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video. So perhaps that spike got people thinking about this card. And the last card in the section is Mahamadi Jin from Unlimited. In theory, going up $126.32 to $398.96. Is that real? Well, this price is a little inflated due to high asking prices. High-grade RAWs can get up to around $100. High-grade graded copies closer to $200. And that brings us to the Commander Spotlight. So all the cards in this section are moving at least in part because of Commander. However, there could be other factors, and in some cases, Commander might not even be the key driver. As we go through, though, I'll let you know. Because it is not an episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch without a card from the dark, here's Martyr's Cry. It goes up $204 to $1917. This does see a little Commander play, but most likely this is moving more because of its status on the reserve list. Yavimaya Hollow goes up $216 to $92.20. This is in some different Commander builds, including Omnith Locus of Mana. Force of Will, the Alliance's copy up $223 this week to $119.99. The Eternal Masters copy goes up $225 to $115.90. This, of course, is a Legacy, Vintage, and Commander staple. In Legacy, it's in as a Delver, Jeskai Control, and more. Vintage, it's in Esper Tinker, Doomsday, and more there. And it's in many different Commander builds, including Urza Lord High Artificer. Plus, it did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week, too. Here's another Double Masters 2022 card trying to find its price point. It is Bitter Blossom up $236 this week to $29.99. Popular Commander card in many builds, including a new one, Baba Lysaga Night Witch again. Another Double Masters 2022 card, this is Sensei's Divining Top up $242 to $30. This did join the list with Neon Dynasty, and it is still there now for Commander Legends. Keep in mind, that covers New Capenna, but this new copy is still moving up some. It is another huge commander card that is getting more play now in some new builds like Elminster and Nero Wild Mage. In Vintage, you see this in Esper Tinker, Paradoxical Outcome, and 8-cast. Molten Echoes is still hot. Commander 2020 up 248 to 553. The Innistrad Crimson Vow Commander copy, which was in the Vampiric Bloodline Commander deck, that goes up $250 to $8. Generally, this is just a solid commander card, and now it is getting even more play in Miram Sentinel Worm decks. The original commander copy of Flusterstorm is moving up 267 this week to 2706. This is in many different commander decks, including Urzalord High Artificer again, which is a popular one. It's also a highly played sideboard card in Modern as well as Legacy. In Vintage, it shows up many times in main decks too. In Modern, you see this in Murktide Regent, Grixis Death Shadow, and much more. Legacy, it's in Jeskai Control, 5-color Zenith, and more there. Vintage, it's in Esper Tinker, Paradoxical Outcome, and more in that format too. Survival of the Fittest from Exodus up 272 to 259.43. This is expensive, but again, if you have a copy, this does see Commander play in a variety of builds. It also did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week too. Harmony of Nature, this is an older card yet to be reprinted. It goes up 280 to 1270 this week. It does see a little Commander play, but it looks like this is a non-reserve list targeted buyout. We have seen this happen recently with older cards that are hard to find in high grade. Sometimes they are targeted for a quick spike and flip. Another Double Masters 2022 card here. It is Allosaurus Shepherd. It goes up $290 to $37. And this is seeing increased commander play now in a new build, Raga Draga Gorguts Boss. Plus you see this in Legacy Elves. Seasoned Pyromancer, the Double Masters 2022 copy goes up $272 to $25. The Modern Horizons copy up $349 to $37.43. Again, we have a low starting price for the new copy, but it is starting to climb. This does get a little commander play in a few different builds, but it is known more for being a very good Modern card. In fact, it has been great in Modern since it came out, but it did see less play for a while when Luris of the Dream Den was in the format. Once that card was banned, this quickly made a comeback. In Modern, you see this in Rakdos Midrange, Jund, and much more. Necropotence, this is the Deckmasters Garfield vs. Finkel copy. It only comes in foil. It goes up $353 this week to $96.38. It is seeing some additional commander play now. It's another good upgrade to Mind Flayers, and it's in new builds around Captain Nagathrod. Plus, this is also in decks around a new commander and background from the Commander Legends main set, Abdel Adrian Gorian's Ward, and Agent of the Iron Throne. In Vintage, you see this in Doomsday. The original Living End from Time Spiral goes up $393 this week to $14.99. This does get a little commander play, but Modern is the key driver for this one. This is found in those Modern Living End decks, which have been popular. Dockside Extortionist, the Commander 2019 copy goes up $361 this week to $58.84. The Double Masters 2022 copy is up $649 to $59.04. One of the most anticipated reprints in Double Masters 2022, already moving up pretty aggressively as you can see. It's a very heavily played commander card in many different builds, plus it is seeing more play now in those Miram Sentinel Worm decks too. Basically though, if you're playing Red in Commander, you probably want a copy of this. Additionally, it got a Command Zone podcast mention this week as well. Mana Drain, the Double Masters 2022 copy is up $579 this week to $45. The Commander Legends copy up $644 to $50. And the Iconic Masters copy up $685 to $54.85. This is an example where these last two copies were losing value leading up to the release of the set, but quickly we saw the Double Masters copy start to move up, so the older copies began to move up too. It is a highly played commander counterspell found in many different builds, including the Ur-Dragon. Plus, it is seeing more commander play now in new builds like Miram Sentinel Worm and Tasha the Witch Queen. Also a good upgrade to Mind Flayers, and I have seen this in fresh builds around Captain Nagathrod. As promised, here's our Givian Finds, up $9.59 to $12.54. Another older card yet to be reprinted. This does get a little commander play, typically in mono white builds, but the real reason this is moving the way it is right now is because it was discussed on an episode of the Command Zone podcast this week about obscure and underrated commander cards. As you can tell, that brought a lot of attention to it. It is kind of like a later game tutor once you have a stocked graveyard. The Double Masters 2022 copy of Food Chain is up $11.06 to $43.64. This was in the list from Zendikar Rising through Strixhaven. But again, we have an example here of a Double Masters 2022 card that had a pretty low pre-release price, at least when you compare it to the copies that were already in circulation. When it comes to gameplay, it's a great commander card and combo enabler. It has been seeing more play in the format as well because it is a good upgrade to the Exit from Exile commander deck, and it's in fresh builds around some cards from there. One of which is the front-facing commander, Feldorn Dreadwolf Herald. The other build is around Durnan of the Yawning Portal, and the background Passionate Archaeologist. Tower of the Magistrate up $30.10 to $45. This is another older card that's yet to be reprinted. Some players were hoping it would show up in Double Masters 2022. Obviously, that didn't happen. It is found in Legacy Naya Depths builds, but the reason it's moving the way it is right now is because this is another card discussed in that Command Zone podcast episode about obscure and underrated cards. In fact, this was the first card they talked about. Remember, this can make equipment fall off a creature, which can be quite good at times. And the last card in this section is Imperial Seal from Double Masters 2022. It goes up $30.29 to $189.86. Alright, financially, this is the biggest reprint in Double Masters 2022, and since the release, it has been moving up aggressively, as you can see. Prior to this printing, it was very hard to find a copy of this card in high grade. The original was in Portal 3 Kingdoms, and English language copies of those cards are extremely hard to find. Your other option was a Judge Foil, and both were very expensive, especially the 3 Kingdoms one. The card itself sure is just a Sorcery Speed Vampiric Tutor, but it is still a card that is played in many different commander decks, and a lot of players want to get their hands on this to have an additional tutor option. It will be interesting to see where this lands for a price point when the dust settles. Right now there is a lot of fear of missing out, people trying to get these quickly. However, it is a very high demand card, and it is hard to speculate what's going to happen. We've just never seen anything quite like this before. And that takes us to the premium spotlight. So every week there's a lot of premium cards moving up, moving down. We can't possibly cover them all. So I try to pick out some that feel relevant. Cards that are moving because of things that are happening, whether that is a new deck pushing them, a preview card that's moving them, as opposed to maybe a targeted buyout, or a card that just looks like it dried up for a week or two and then is going to return to its old price. Now, I did not select any Double Masters 2022 premium copies today. They're still very turbulent. Some are jumping up a lot, some are going down a lot. I don't know if looking at those prices would have really told us much of anything, but I did select one card I wanted to point out, and that is Tower of the Magistrate. The Mercadian Masks foil copies up $49.99 to $549.97, or is it? Well, I looked at recent sales, and there's not many. This is a hard card to find in high grade anywhere. But I will tell you, it does appear that sellers have jumped the asking price on this since the non-foil copy has spiked. I'm not yet seeing them sell for this price, but I know they can break about $230 in high grade raw. I haven't seen any high grade graded copies sell since this spike started, though. Maybe one in very high grade could get into this ballpark. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. As always, hey, if you stuck with me to the end, thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Until next time, hey, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.